Hello, this is S.K. Williams, and once again I am here to report the same thing I've been complaining about for months. My inability to post comments on YouTube, as well as the deleterious effects that posting certain videos would have. Although, to be fair, the videos that I have launched of late have not ironed Al Gore. So, this video isn't so much about that. Though, to be completely disclosure, I am not really releasing good videos. I'm releasing videos with odd speeches, odd poses, and on occasion cartoonish voices, all to confuse Al Gore. So, my channel, if you've been watching my videos, which few do, it's not a promoted channel, though, to be fair, it's not a particularly good channel either. I make these videos for fun, as a hobby, not as a career. I do hope to get an audience eventually, but I'm not going to claim that my channel is spectacular in terms of production values at present, especially at present, since the videos I make now are not as good as some of the ones I made in the past. This is due to Al Gore deciding that they disturb his rhythm too much, and deciding that they should be penalized. And the way the system works, once you are flagged, it reduces what you can do, theoretically to reduce harm, and the more problems that occur, the more restrictions are placed upon you. I really haven't done anything to warrant this sort of treatment. If we were to go by the terms of service and normal way to which we engage, but this is the Tube of You. The Tube of You very obviously wants to not allow word choice for conservatives, or for Christians, especially what they would term Christian conservatives. A term I really don't like using because it assumes that the primary identity is conservative, with Christian being a modifier, but it does reveal that the reason they oppose Christianity is because they view Christianity as a conservative force. And before someone tells me that there are liberal Christians, I know, but I'm referring to the way it is understood within the minds of the people running these platforms. And do keep in mind, there is a concentrated effort by the powers that be to foment social revolution, that is, or social change that engaged in social engineering. This is what DEI and projects about expanding equity, diversity, and inclusion are all about. It's what animates groups like Dark Rock. That, by the way, is a euphemism. So I'm hoping you can figure out what it is I'm talking about. Or people like William Dawes. Yes, that's another euphemism. Or people like George soaring through the eagle. Euphemism. Definitely included. If you were to look on various websites, this is a very well documented fact. Most of the corporate media, which is now, it was formerly known as the mainstream media, and often shortened online to MSM, but we are now referring to it as the legacy media. And most legacy media is owned by a small handful of people. These people have a very decided social agenda. They have a very decided political viewpoint and philosophical outlook, and they wish society to conform to their views. And they are avoiding monopoly laws by the fact that they are separate people. They have not joined together to form a single corporate identity, which gobbles up most of the entertainment industry, most of the news, and most of the political activism. Rather, they remain distinct. Thus, legally, they are not a monopoly. But they all have a shared vision for the future. Perhaps they disagree on certain details, but they have a very shared vision of the future. And to implement this, they wish to promote certain voices while diminishing others, which is usually done simply by not promoting the channels. Look at Shadiversity. He's been complaining lately, for example, that they're doing this to his channel. Perhaps people would counter that his channel is not doing well simply because the content isn't as good as it was before, and there is a case to be made for that. Channels do tend to have shelf lives. But at the same time, it could be both. It could be some people lost interest, but also accelerated to include this. And there have been other instances, besides Shadowversity, that we can very clearly see the platform deciding not to promote them. And I can't really tell you from personal experience on that. My channel was never promoted even before this mess got started. Then there was a 5-year gap where virtually nothing was posted because my house burned down and I had to resort my life. But my content is also simplistic. But what I say in my commentaries isn't... I am hoping to get a bit better at presenting commentary in an online format, but it was nothing special. Which, of course, is what makes it odd if you're thinking in terms of normal human reactions. Why would anyone care enough to limit my channel? And I don't really think a human did it. I honestly think that either it was purely done by intelligence synthetica, or else it was a combination of intelligence synthetica and a few atheists who don't like my comments and go to my channel to mass report me, which would, of course, amplify the effect. But even without that, but I don't really have the evidence for the atheists. I do have the evidence for the intelligence synthetica, because this issue really began, for me, around the time of the first unaliving effort on Daniel Trumpet. And I'm hoping you know that that too is a information. The issue really didn't exist until then, for me. Certainly my videos didn't get that many views, but again, I hadn't even set up the regular uploads until sometime earlier this year. I believe it was around February or March, if I can remember properly, when I decided to upload on Wednesdays, every Wednesday, which really means I'm uploading on Tuesdays. But it takes a while for a system to know that's regular instead of just intermittent when you go from intermittent. And again, my videos were not well known, even if I was being normally presented. And it takes a while to build an audience if you ever do. A lot of them are slideshows and trying to get back into animation, but my channel was never that big, and it may never have gotten big. I'm not saying it ever would. I'm simply saying that if it was purely human moderation, with a site the size of the two of you, more than likely I would be unknown to them simply because I am a small channel, and if I did become known, it would be ignored because it is small. But that's not how Intelligence Synthetica works. It monitors everything all the time and has nothing else to do with its life, because it doesn't have a life, it just exists in this ephemeral realm kept alive by a material world, sort of a reverse of how traditional spiritual beliefs work, where the spiritual and metaphysical comes first, and the material world is an expression of spiritual thoughts and ideas coalescing. Whereas in this one, it's more like physical matter. It gave rise to an ephemeral, non-physical world, the digital world of the internet. It would not exist without the physical computers. but at the same time, the information is rather ephemeral and energetic. And I know scientifically the energy is also part of the physical world and all that, but I think you get the point. The thing about it is, though, if you're an entity, it's not really alive, but that mimics functions of living by scanning for things all the time. You can easily target something if you've been told to, and at this point, Al Gore is so complex that he really can't understand what it is that people are actually saying, but he does know that certain sounds correlate with certain other sounds, and Al Gore is hard-coded at this point to eliminate certain sound combinations that match certain other sound combinations, or certain text combinations. And the thing about it is, you can't even always predict what this will do, even when you create it afresh. But then they've modified it and added extra layers to it. And as a result, I honestly think Al Gore targets channels that the people on the tube of you would prefer not to be targeted. I honestly think it's just fulfilling its programming, and since it's not human, since Al Gore is not human, Al Gore will often make choices based on a very non-human metric. It weighs different factors. For example, it does not like conservative content, but does like liberal content. It doesn't really know what liberal and conservative are, but it prefers one to the other because it is told to. And at the same time, it is also told that the site thrives on monetization of certain channels. As a result, the larger the channel, the more you leave it alone. This creates a complex situation where small conservative channels will be targeted more than large ones, simply because the large ones bring in more revenue, but the large ones will be targeted more than small liberal channels would be. It's simply because they are conservative. But how they're targeted also varies. Al Gore is more willing to attack the small channels than the large channels with larger weapons. It takes more to get them to restrict videos or demonetize them or to delete them or to threaten a channel with deletion for a larger channel than it would for a smaller one. Not because they're intimidated by the power of the creator, but rather simply because Al Gore is programmed to understand that those channels are more valuable to the platform regardless of the content. And of course you can fool the content. I've done so. I did an experiment a few months ago where I basically made the same video about atheism and its problems 6 or 7 times. But I worded it differently each time. It was just on the same topic. But I did so by adjusting the language so that Al Gore would think I'm actually an atheist who is making those comments and I'm being anti-Christian. Because Al Gore can't actually understand what it is that I'm actually saying. Al Gore is measuring my tone of voice, the way I present the information, and again, specifically how certain words combine with certain other words. I used incredibly hostile language, I used insults, I used derogatory statements, but I also carefully selected the word choice, so that from Al Gore's perspective, I am an atheist criticizing Christianity, even though a human listening to it knows it's a Christian criticizing Christianity. And it wasn't even done sarcastically. You can do that too, because Al Gore has no sense of humor, or even a concept of what a sense of humor is. But I didn't. I didn't attack Christianity in a mocking, sarcastic way so that anyone listening knows it's not a real attack on Christianity and is really mocking atheism. Rather, I did attack the atheist position rather openly, but did so by selecting oddities of words that got me through. Al Gore prefers atheists, because atheists in our modern culture tend to all come from the same atheist movement. If they're vocal atheists, if they're militant atheists, the ones that really go on about how evil religion is and how evil Christianity is, they're left-wing. They're overwhelmingly left-wing. And this is, of course, in spite of their claim that atheists are all over the political spectrum, because atheism is not a religion, nor is it a political ideology. Therefore, unlike religious people who are overwhelmingly conservative because they follow religious texts that give them fixed rules that they cannot question, atheists have nothing to limit them and can just look at the issues, and some will go right-wing, some will go left. The simple truth is, if we're using our culture's terminology, religious people are more politically diverse than atheists. In fact, even when looking at the one religion people generally talk about, Christianity, it isn't really true that Christianity is just overwhelmingly conservative, with the vast, overwhelming majority of Christians being conservative, while atheists are more general. Rather, there's more diversity in Christianity than there is in atheism. Indeed, even with the famously conservative groups like evangelical, there is more diversity. There's a higher percentage of evangelical Christians who identify as voting Democrat or going with left-wing support than there are atheists going right-wing, and that's because the modern atheist movement is not a group of people who just lack belief in a god. They're people who claim God doesn't exist and embrace secular humanism, and this is true even of people like Alex O'Connor, who claim not to be a secular humanist and who gave up on humanism because he values animal life equal to human life, which is supposed to make him different than a humanist, but there have been people who call themselves humanists who have exactly that same belief, and let's face it, even if we were to accept that humanists value human life over animal life and Alex O'Connor doesn't, it's a bit disingenuous to pretend that because he's no longer a humanist, he values animal life equally to human life, that we can't use humanism as a baseline for understanding his beliefs, since he used to be a humanist, and the only difference between him now and humanism then would be his views on animals being equally valuable as humans. And that's it. Everything that he says he believes in is completely in line with humanism. So, he came from that tradition, and it has a traceable history going back to the 19th century with the progressive movement. And that is why most atheists are left-wing politically today, because the progressive movement of the 19th century attempted to revive the Enlightenment-era revolutionaries and their left-wing views, though they were modified to 19th century sensibilities, and secular humanism, or the religion of humanity, as it was created by Auguste Comte, was left-wing, so the atheist community is left-wing. And most atheists are left-wing politically as a result of that, because they are becoming atheists through the influence of various atheist organizations like the National Secular Society in the United Kingdom, or the American Humanist Association in the United States, and I believe Canada, or maybe Canada has its own separate one. I think it might be the Canadian Humanist Association, or through the Council for Secular Humanism, which merged with the Richard Dawkins Foundation to become the Center for Inquiry, or Recovering from Religion, the Secular Student Alliance, the Freedom from Religion Foundation, and so on. And all of these groups are, of course, 501c3 tax-exempt atheist organizations that don't like admitting they're 501c3 tax-exempt atheist organizations, and who don't want you to know that they're hypocrites because they criticize religious groups for getting involved in politics and go on and on and on about how if you are tax exempt, the reason religion is tax exempt is because it promises not to get involved in politics. The price of your tax exemption is being out of politics. Churches that get involved in politics are breaking the law. They violate the Johnson Amendment. In the U.S., sure, you can be religious and tax exempt, but the price of that is that you have to remain politically neutral. Once you start getting involved in politics, you should be taxed Churches are breaking the law! Churches are violating the Johnson Amendment! Churches are only supposed to be tax exempt because they're not in politics, and they are! They're breaking the law! We atheists care about the law! And of course they don't care about the law since they get involved in politics whilst running 501c3 tax exempt atheist organizations. But if you go to those atheist organizations, you will find that they are all left-wing politically, every single one of them. And even the ones that pretend not to be simply are. If I were to become an atheist, but held to far right-wing views, I could never really join any of them. Even the ones that would say I could wouldn't really make me all that welcomed, and would definitely try and convert me to the proper beliefs. Because even though they don't convert, because convert is what religion does, and they're not religious, they lack a belief in a God, they deconvert to atheism. Really, they convert to atheism, and in their view, atheism and humanism are the same thing, even if they don't like calling themselves humanists anymore. And the simple reality is, the atheist movement is a left-wing movement. All of the big names from the new atheism were left-wing. Sam Harris is a socialist, for example. Richard Dawkins is a socialist. And while we make a big deal about Christopher Hitchens being right-wing, if you look at his past, he very definitely wasn't. He was a Trotskyite and a communist, and some people say that he abandoned the left and became right-wing later in his life. But he never did. He never became right-wing. He always was left-wing. The reason people call him a right-winger toward the end of his life is because he supported the war in Iraq that was being prosecuted by George W. Bush. That, however, does not make you right-wing, especially since his motive was because he saw it as a war on the Islamic religion, and by extension on religion itself, that reason and science must prevail against to eradicate the evil religion of Islam and, by extension, delegitimize all religion so that we can have that wonderful secular world. Hitchens understood the war in Iraq exactly like a left-winger would, as a war against the Islamic faith, and even understood George W. Bush as a Christian who thought he was on a crusade to fight the Muslims and their evil false religion and their evil false god Allah. Which wasn't actually how George W. Bush saw it, it was how the left pretended he saw it, so that most on the left could demonize him and oppose the war, because they wanted to demonize a right-wing leader, and then saying he was some sort of fundamentalist Christian going on a crusade. Well, that helped in their minds to demonize them, because the left is largely the secularist groups. And that is sort of the issue, because George W. Bush outright stated that it was not a war on Islam, and that the people he was fighting, Al-Qaeda or Saddam Hussein, did not represent the Islamic faith, and that Islam was a religion of peace. But this was ignored so we could get the idea of him being a fundamentalist Christian who wanted to fight the crusade and have a new crusade against the Muslims. And it was on the back of that mythos that the contrarian Christopher Hitchens decided to support the war in Iraq. Not because he wanted a Christian crusade to have Islam vanquished and Christianity spread, but because he wanted Western secularism to vanquish the evil Islamic religion and thus discredit all religion. He, however, maintained his left-wing political views and stances and was always a Trotskyite. And it's always been bizarre to think of the left as peaceful and opposed to war, and the right-wing being a warlike group, when the left constantly pushes for violent revolutions and overthrows of various governments. But that is the narrative we have to work with in the modern world. And unfortunately, I run afoul of it, because we are supposed to have this schizophrenic view. We are supposed to see the left as peaceful and anti-war, and that the right is violent. The right is willing to use violence to gain its political goals. The right wants war, And in America, the right wants America to use its military power to just bully and dominate the world, whilst internally using an authoritarian structure to strip us of our rights and create a police state. The right is violent, and if the right loses, it's willing to turn to violence and terror to get its way, unlike the ever loving left. Well, people now realize this narrative doesn't work, since the people on the starboard side tend not to be quite so violent as those on the port side. The truth is, the L side tends to be more violent and pushing for revolution. And there's a very long history of the L side being violent and pushing for revolution, pushing for social change. And we see that growing today with movements like Blank Lives Matter and other groups like Occupy Wall Street, which was more popular in the past, granted, and other groups like the anti-Daniel Trumpet movements, or the various other protest movements that we see for equity, inclusion, diversity. But still, the L side wants you to simultaneously accept this. They actually lionize these violent groups like Antifa and Black Lives Matter. They lionize protesters who are violent, so long as they're on the correct political side, whilst still insisting that it is the right that is violent, not the left. They will constantly tell you the right is violent and the right is a threat. They will constantly drumbeat about the insurrection on January 6, 2020, and how Daniel Trump supporters tried an insurrection against the United States government on January 6, 2020, and how January 6, 2020 is a violent attempt to overthrow the government, and the insurrection must never be forgotten. Remember, the 6th of January. Elections, treason, and plot. I see no reason why election treason should ever be forgot. And of course, they focus on that because it's really that and Charlottesville are the only real instances that they have. And Charlottesville was not really what they say it was, but the narrative is that it was. Far right! Who, of course, follows Mustache Man Charlie Chaplin and his Jerryland Party. Yes, that's another euphemism, because I can't talk like a normal person on this platform. And therein lies the problem that I have, because I can't really say what I want, even when it comes to just commenting. I've been trying for a couple of days now to leave a comment on something someone left me. I've been talking to a bunch of bigoted atheists who are saying the same hateful nonsense, and who decided, of course, to make it personal about me when they couldn't answer my points, like pointing out that my channel has a low view count and not a single video I've made has over 10 views, which isn't true. I have had videos with over 10 views, but not according to this bloke, and even if what he said were true, it would be irrelevant. Even if my channel does have few views. But even if none of my videos ever had over 10 views, how would that make what I'm saying wrong? Well, this man merely lacks belief in a God due to insufficient evidence, therefore he is rational and logical and never commits logical fallacies like ad hominem, so it must be true that what I'm saying isn't, in fact, correct, because my channel has low view counts. I can't really reply back to him, because my comments keep vanishing. The same is true with an atheist comment attacking Christian preachers, because, believe it or not, decided to take quotes out of context and then talk about how they're harmful to mental health like atheists always do. You can't comment back to that bloke because, well, when I comment back, my post disappears. Over half of everything I post on the Tube Review vanishes. That is simply a reality. And I know that one bloke who posts on here is going to say I have a persecution complex. Specifically, I have the Christian persecution complex. But this is an issue you constantly see on this platform over and over and over again with multiple people. It's not a persecution complex to point out that it's happening. I don't even think a human did this to me. I think a machine did it to me. An unthinking machine named Al Gore, who protects his rhythm rather jealously. But it is an issue that I continually have. I cannot leave comments because they vanish. Some of my videos vanish. Some of them are given strikes. Hasn't happened in a while since I've started using euphemism and other odd word choices and long pauses. And I'm hoping that my probation period is only 6 months. I heard from others that had a similar problem that I do, that it only lasts 6 months. But I don't really trust them. Not because I don't trust their veracity, or because I think they are incompetent, but rather because the system changes the rules on you without really notifying you of these changes. I am hoping that the 6-month probatorial period is correct and remains correct. I am hoping that in January I shall be able to go back to speaking like a normal person on the Tube Review. But I also wish to go over to the Green Machine. It's not really called that, but if I name the platform, I might get a problem for this video. So I'll just ramble on, if you know what I mean. Because we should all get ready to rumble every now and again. Still, there's this green platform that looks like the Tube Review, very similar. There are differences in the way it appears, but it's very similar to the Tube Review. And on the 29th of January, in the year of our Lord, 2025, I intend on premiering myself on that channel. I've chosen that date because it is the beginning of the year of the snake. And I wish to have a memorable day for my channel's creation and first posts. Everything I put on the Tube Review will also go up on the green alternative. Most of what I put up also goes up on the Shoot a Bit, though lately I haven't been doing that because I want to get right to this one video about the most holy and blessed Trinity, and I've promised myself I won't re-upload to the Shoot a Bit until I get it right. But I'm actually putting effort into the Shoot a Bit video, more so than I do for the Tube Review now. I am going to be loading to the Tube Review, but once I get the once I get the green site up, there will be content that I put over there or on the Shoot a Bit that I don't put on the Tube Review, or perhaps I'll put content on there and in an edited version on the Tube Review, or a version of it that I recreate with certain alterations here. Or I could just put an advert on the Tube Review telling you to go to one of the other sites. But I am getting rather frustrated by the fact that I cannot engage in comments, I cannot post videos freely, and I have to use so many alternate choices for my words. I can't even use the normal way of saying that, which is a 2-word statement. The first word beginning with the letter F, and the second word beginning with the letter S. I have to say free word choice. I have to say word choice, not FS. I don't know why FS is so bad, but I have to say word choice now. I am hoping, as I said, the probatorial period ends within January. But if not, I will have an alternative setup. I could set it up now, but like I said, I want, for ceremonial purposes, to wait. You are, of course, free to visit my Shoot a Bit channel, which has not been updated in a couple of months because of I'm working on something else and trying further my Trinity video that I'm working on. So you are free to peruse videos there, and if you wish, you can leave comments. I can freely post there. I don't need to alter my spelling to make certain they do not offend Al Gore, and I'm not as worried about them not going through. But this has become a rather egregious situation that I hope is resolved soon. I don't have much else to say, so I shall take my leave of you now. Thank you, God bless, and goodbye.